Yeah, I'm really stoked to connect. I think after our call, it was really, really good because you gave me a lot of perspective on what it actually would look like to take our company and do what we're doing kind of with the bits and pieces that we're doing and go on a mobile platform or a web platform. You really succinctly broke it down for me, and that was super, super helpful. So I think we're probably at least 6 months out from kind of getting in that. And so you'll hear from me again soon, but we are kind of pre where we need to be to get into that world, I think. So the conversation was really incredible.
Great. Good to hear it. I wanted to provide value, and I wanted to make sure that you make the right decision. And if it's ain't broken and it's not the immediate need, then take it slow.
Exactly. You have a really good mic setup. Did you have someone set up, or did you research mics at all?
I used to work in a sound recording studio as a sound engineer. I know all about it. I know about recording audio, music. So I was basically working as a recording engineer at a sound studio for probably about 4 years back in the days when I was 16. And I have a formal musical degree, so I know a little bit about mics and the Shures and how to do things in all audio. So a little bit of audio files here. So like it, I did a little bit of research. I saw that this is the go-to, and Shure is typically a go-to mic when you want to do any voice work. Starting with Shure's 58s and betas, and the SM7 is a great mic. So
I actually have this little Audio Technica. This is the ATR 2100.
Yep,
it's kind of the starter mic right there.
That's Audio Technica is a great microphone as well. It's a very good brand, and I worked a lot with them too.
Awesome. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the intro before this.
Yeah.
And I'd love to just get right into it because I'm excited already. I can tell we're going to have some good conversations. So it's funny, you've been starting on audio stuff, something that I didn't know about you. So tell me, Alex, a little bit about your background. How did you get to where you are now? I know you played hockey. I mean, I've just done a little bit of kind of preliminary research on you, but talk to me about you, what you do currently, and then I'd love to hear a little bit of backstory about how you got to where you are now.
Great. So that's a great start. I'm going to start with where I am right now and walk backwards towards the beginning. Right now, I run a company called Genium, and we provide software consultancy services for companies that require high quality and cybersecurity aspects. And we're heavily in Argentina and the United States. Majority of our clients in the United States. Argentina is our main development hub, and we get great engineers and do a lot of great stuff there with both custom projects for mobile apps, websites, and the stuff augmentation as well, where we help the companies to augment their existing teams. Works great, and I've been enjoying that myself. That was my passion, quality, cybersecurity, and that's one part of the plate, and probably 70% of my time, 70 to 80% of my time goes towards my business. The rest is distributed among different other things. Majority of the time, the remaining time takes hockey. I am a professional hockey referee for the American Hockey League here in California, and I work pretty much local games here in California, Northern California, and typically get about five games a month.
Wow.
which is great for me. It keeps me in shape, and I've been doing hockey throughout my entire life. In fact, started at 11. I played for 4 years. Did make it as a great player. Transitioned into a referee and worked my way all the way up to the professional level in Russia, where I started. I grew up and was born and raised in Moscow. And had a blast. And throughout those years, as I was doing hockey, I was getting paid a little bit, and I was a young kid and an athlete. I also had a formal musical degree. I played piano, and then I played rock bands and stuff, as all teenagers do. And then transitioned into where actually sound recording studio was my first job. I started when I was 15 as an assistant at a sound recording studio, and I was literally giving the mics and setting up the mics and just doing some local work and learning how to do stuff. And eventually I worked my way up to the sound engineer when I was around 17, 18. And I was doing hockey heavily, so I was combining schedules. And typically sound recording studios, they opened up at the evening hours and afternoon and evening hours. And I would mix it up with hockey.
And this is all in Russia?
Yes, this is all in Russia. It's pre-entrepreneurship days. At the age of 18, I remember that I wanted to stoked me a thought that I wanted to live by the ocean. So I said, well, anywhere in the world, but I want to have a beautiful view. I want to be right next to the ocean. That kind of started the whole thing. And then at the age of 21, I set a goal to myself that I want to have my own business at 25. There's been conversations with my friends, and my friends were doing some business back in Russia, and I saw that. It's like I really wanted to open up my first company by 25. That was kind of my goal back then, and it was different because the entrepreneurship culture is not as strong as here in the United States back in Russia. So it was a little different. Then fast forward, I was doing hockey, and hockey was going very well, and I've been doing that full time. But I also started I've been also around computers a lot because I've studied math in high school, and I was very good at it. And my brother is a software engineer, so I've been a lot. My youngest brother, actually, younger brother is a software engineer. So I was around that area for quite a while, and I started doing that on my own because he was doing it, and we were living in the same apartment at the time. And when I was very close to the toppest level of being official in Russia, I started to see that some officials got injured, and they got injured badly, and they were out for a year or two. And I thought that, look, if that knock on wood happens to me, then there's no backup plan for me. If I'm done with hockey, I have nothing behind my back that would support me. And I started to look for another profession that can work and fit the picture of me living somewhere by the ocean, and certain things. So I worked my way backwards. So I imagined where I want to be, what I want to have. And at that time, of course, it was a lot of the material stuff as I was growing up. And I thought, let's work my way backwards to where I should start and how I should get there.
Well, and when you say material stuff, I mean, are these cars, are these Lamborghinis, boats?
Nah,
I mean, what?
No, I wasn't into it.
Houses.
I wanted to have a beautiful house with a view of the ocean view. So I guess that was kind of my ideal picture. But I was a hardworking athlete, so I didn't dream too big, as I had to do everyday trainings, a lot of games, and I decided to pick up another second degree. So I went ahead and applied to the best university in Russia there is. It's the top one university in Russia, similar to MIT of the United States, and I got in, and I've graduated as a mathematician and computer science expert in cybersecurity. And I've got that second degree while I was doing hockey, and I at that time at the end of the year one, I already had enough skills to start programming, and I started doing consultancy on the side, and I loved it. So I've got very good feedback, and I was growing that kind of side projects on the side. And eventually my friend who graduated a year earlier from the same university, and we were friends, he got an offer here in San Francisco. He worked for a company for a year, and he got headhunted by Microsoft in Seattle, and he was moving up, and he didn't want to leave their current company hanging. So he said, look, there's a spot. Why don't you apply? I'll go through interviews. I know you, and let's see what happens. I cannot guarantee anything. So he did this. He put me in contact with the CEO. I've got through interviews. I successfully aced those all, and they gave me a job offer that was very compelling. Salary-wise, it was 3 times more than I was making back in Russia for hockey. And it was a very tough decision to pretty much quit hockey at the pinnacle of my career and switched to a completely different route, different country, different language, different everything. And as an official, you don't really go to work as 9 to 6. So you get your games. You have pretty much you are the king of your own schedule, working that around your games. You get your assignments, and then you're on your own. You work out, you eat healthy, and then you travel. It's all on your own and your schedule. And I've never done a strict 9 to 6, whatever, 8 to 5 job. And it was completely different for me because it blew my mind, and it actually helped me a lot because when I moved here to the United States, I didn't have that experience back in Russia. I've never worked at an office in Russia, so I didn't know the culture, and I didn't bring that mentality to the United States. So I was a clean sheet of paper here when I came over, and I started just learning how to do that, and I did great. All I did was working hard. Sometimes when I didn't know how to do certain things, I would stay up until 4 a.m. or I remember actually vividly that 4 a.m. would be my cutoff time because I would not think past that. And I would work throughout the day and then came back home and sit down up until I'll pull another shift just to work. So I get my excellent performance. And I did this. I did amazingly well. And unfortunately, the company shrunk and they had to let me go. I was hoping that it's not going to happen, but I kind of saw it happening because a few guys got laid off before me. I faced the decision to start my own business there. It was a tough decision. I didn't know what to do because I had to travel, and I needed to find a way to work remotely for 2 months. And I talked to a guy who got laid off 2 months ahead of me, and he started doing consultancy. He said, "Look, just send out resumes, say that's what you do, and if they're comfortable working with you remotely, they might, hire you." I didn't know how to do that, so he taught me how to do this. He gave me his resume and said, "Look, just tweak it a little bit," because it was not a resume; it's more of a portfolio. So it was different. Like, hey, here's what I've done, here's what I'm capable of, versus here's my academics achievements, here's my jobs and what I've done there, and more of a list of products that I've launched. And that's how I started. I've got my first gig in about 2 weeks out of starting emailing to all those positions, and I was so lucky and I was so happy that I got that opportunity. And I had to travel for months and a half back to Russia. So I was working while I'm traveling, and I was doing a lot of different things back in Russia. So it was not a vacation. In fact, I don't think I had a normal vacation in the last 9 years.
Oh, wow.
So because I'm always working, I cannot switch myself off, and I can talk a little bit more about that. And basically, I did amazing job for them. They came back for more. They said, "Look, we need you here." And it was a company down in Los Angeles, and I was traveling, and eventually came back here to San Francisco. And they started asking for more. They said, "Hey, we need more. You're doing an amazing job." They started giving more and more work, and I started hiring more and more people. And they started passing me along to other companies and giving me referrals. And that's how I grew. Eventually, I started to look into other markets for talents because talents here in the Bay Area are extremely expensive. I just had a friend that got a salary of $350,000 a year at Facebook as a senior engineer, and
wow.
It's impossible to compete. It's impossible to find an engineer and bill a reasonable rate and help companies to grow with a high quality at a budget. So I had to pick and choose different things, and I did trial projects all around the world up until I've landed in Argentina, and I love the mentality. There's a lot of factors that came all in together. I've tried Mexico, I've tried Brazil, I've tried Chile, I've tried China, I've tried India, Philippines. I've tried it all, and I for software engineers, I landed in Argentina, and it's been amazing since then. So, kind of a quick, detailed version of what happened.
I love that. Thank you so much. And I was like, I had so many different questions at several different points, but I just decided to let you go because it was very succinct, really clear. You're incredible. This is amazing. One thing that strikes me throughout listening to all of this is the discipline that I feel like it must have took, not only in your sports, right, in athletics, playing hockey and refereeing, playing at a high level, then getting your 2 degrees, both again at high levels in fairly difficult degrees. This is not necessarily an easy degree to get, and then the way that you've been able to kind of excel across the board and then continue and then do your own thing, really inspiring and really cool. And I know it took a lot of discipline, so I want to ask you, did you ever feel like you were being disciplined, or you had to discipline yourself, or was it for you just like the next thing, like, I got to do this, I got to do this, I got to do this?
It is right now. It is strictly scheduled right now. I live by my calendar, so that helps me to kind of see where things are and how to prioritize things because I do a lot of other stuff. I try to combine them as much as possible. So I constantly study my calendar to see where I can squeeze things in or combine them together and properly delegate things and control the quality. But it all comes from sports. I feel that business is a sport. And I treat that as a sport and as a competitive athlete. We love to win. We always and it's not just for winning. It's just winning over yourself. It's doing for me, every game is a challenge to myself. Can I do better than I did before? So I'm competing with myself pretty much. And that discipline came from being an official, because I started as an official when I was 15 years old. So I had to do my own travels. I have to arrange a lot of different things and be on time for the game always. I've only missed one game in my life, and it was a recreational game, and I'm super ashamed of it. But it actually taught me a very good lesson. I was super tired. I overworked and I overslept, and it's just gladly there was another official to back me up, but I've got a phone call. I remember at 9 a.m. Asking me where I am because the game starts in 5 minutes, and I just woke up, and it was about 2 hours to the ring. So taught me a lesson. Never happened again. It was when I was probably 18 years old, or 17 or 18 years old. Never happened again. That discipline came from just showing up on time, and then the constant routine. Right, you have to be in shape to perform well, stretch before the game, do the game, kind of look at the mistakes. I had great supervisors throughout my life and great mentors that I constantly I was seeking out to get those mentors and get in front of them so I can ask specific questions and learn from them. And I took those chances and took that opportunity when I can.
Did you find a difference? Sorry to interrupt here.
Yeah.
Did you find a huge difference between work culture, startup culture, just kind of hustle and maybe the discipline level in Russia versus coming here to the US, whether it's the Bay Area, whether it's LA? And I remember you telling me part of your story. You said, it was a big risk. You gave up being, reffing hockey. Not gave up, but at the time gave it up in Russia, came here to move to work for that company. And that was your first kind of intro into that life, that kind of work cycle. Did you find that were there some big surprising things in either work pace? Are people lazier here? Are people harder working in some areas? Kind of be critical. What were some things that struck you?
First thing that struck me is, in a good way, is management style. So it's a completely different thing. Management style, it feels like even if a person didn't have a management degree, they knew how to properly manage a process. And I didn't see great examples of that back in Russia. And I think U.S. and Americans are very good at managing and setting up the certain process where once it's all set up, any person can do any job, and with giving instructions and giving specific regulations on average, right? So I'm not talking about specific cases. So my experience was great. I was literally working really hard because that's all I knew. Like you come in, you get a task. Sometimes I didn't. So I never said no. So I said, look, I'll take anything, and I was humble, and I would say yes to everything. I would work my butt off. I would work really, really hard, and if I couldn't do something, I would tell the person, hey. And sometimes I had to tell my boss, hey, I'm not sure how to do that. Can I talk to the other guys and see if they can help me out? And they would be happy to sit down with me and see if they can help me out, especially in the beginning. But that rarely happened because I'm not stupid, so I've got a very good degree, and I trust my degree and I trust my work ethics, and I did great results, and that was also a consultancy company that I was working for, and clients were super happy, so they were inviting me over to their offices to do a walkthrough, and I kind of started to open up more as I was a little shy in talking. It's a different language. There's cultural barriers and things like that. You have to be a little more polite. But since I've never worked a day at the office back in Russia, except for the sound recording studio where you deal with artists and musicians, they're a little different people. They're very nice and they're polite and they're educated, and it's a different environment. So it's not an office environment. Same with hockey, right? Hockey and sport is universal. It's the same back in Russia, in China, in Kazakhstan, or in the United States. Hockey community is the same. Great people, hardworking people, and hockey is the universal language. So I didn't have that barrier moving over here, and I've picked up the management style and the way you work in the United States quite fairly quickly. Somebody had to pull me aside and say you have to smile a little bit more. Those were a little more cultural things because here's the thing. It struck me. He said, look, you have to leave your problems at home behind you. When you come into the office, you have to contribute to the working environment because nobody else wants to be affected and influenced by your problems. I find that completely different. It's different from my mentality because I feel if in business you help your employees to feel good about their personal life and they have a problem, I'd rather talk about that and spend my time to help him to feel better because he will perform better at work and there's no tension. And in my company, I've implemented it differently. We always talk about different problems, and I go above and beyond to help my guys to make sure that they feel comfortable because I feel that we have one life and they have to enjoy their workplace, and workplace also have to contribute to their success both personally and professionally. Here it was a little different. Corporate culture, nobody gives a clue about how you feel outside of work. So I had to adjust, and over time, I kind of switched my perspective because we're not in a live or death situation, and there shouldn't be any stress. It's either an expense or something else. It's not a problem.
Yeah, very true. I think there's so much that we take for granted here in the US, and I think some of the problems can be magnified over where they are. I was going to say something as well. Your English is incredibly good, and I was realizing this as you were talking. I was like, oh my goodness, this guy, so you know Russian and English, correct?
Yes.
Do you know other languages?
No, I don't. I'd love to pick up Spanish a little bit more, but I just don't have time. And frankly speaking, that helps because everybody we hire in the company speaks fluent English, and that kind of keeps just because I cannot even do one-on-ones or interviews with people that are not speaking English. That kind of serves as a barrier.
Definitely. So at your point, your company now, you're working in cybersecurity for the most part, correct?
A lot of it's not per se cybersecurity, but a lot of the companies we work with requires some sort of extra level of background checks or security around accounts. The certain way we develop software, including testing and certain specific processes around making sure that architecture is secure, there's no flaws, because in the long term that can cause you a lot of problems when the data leaks out or something happens.
Do you have any sort of pitch or anything that you give to the companies, the employees of the companies that are implementing the software in? Because everything is going online nowadays, and you constantly are hearing about data breaches, and you're hearing about all sorts of different things just in the news. Smart devices are all around us now. Are there some go-to cybersecurity tips that you kind of are rule of thumb for you or any of the people on your team?
Absolutely. We have a strict checklist for different tiers of security access. So obviously not every client requires the highest security measurements because security comes with a cost, and we want to make sure that it makes sense to have that security level. But for majority of the accounts, it has to be two-factor authentication with we have hardware YubiKeys for every account that makes sure even if somebody hacks your password, they will not be able to log into your email unless they have a hardware key that you carry with you at all times. And there's specific things that are around policy installing specific applications, using VPNs, Wi-Fi's, what ports are open, the development process, the security around accounts, how often do you change your passwords, and it's enforced throughout the organization. We change it quite often. I'm not able to tell you the exact number for the security reasons, but specifically, it's literally a checklist that our IT department goes through and makes sure that this specific group of security guys that work on a specific projects adhere this particular security requirement. And again, I've learned that from actually Starbucks and McDonald's. I heavily studied Starbucks and McDonald's this year when I first came to the U.S. For the management style and process organization. And I had a blast talking to a McDonald's manager at a time, because I would literally go to a McDonald's. I would sit there and watch. Of course, I would get a burger when I just moved here because I thought it's cool, and then I've learned that it's not. So I would sit in McDonald's and I would watch employees work and see where they move, how they move around the kitchen, and how they greet clients. So I was studying that. At some point, I had some notes. I was writing it down, and I met a guy. He was a manager at that McDonald's, and I started asking him, and he said, look, we have a turnover rate of 6 months. So every 6 months we get a new employee, and we have to train him to the highest level of standards so he gets to work at a specific position, and we constantly have to do that because the flow is amazing. I mean, the turnaround is great, and turnover is very high. So he taught me a lesson of organizing the process and using checklists and very specific instructions and training practices how to do that. And I started researching that. And up until my aviation days, now I'm a student pilot and learn aviation right now. And I see that they have the same exact principles. There are checklists and specific processes how you go around certain things. And I implemented the same in our company for security and other development processes to ensure quality.
Do you integrate those sort of systems throughout other areas of the company as well? Because I assume with computer stuff, that is very important to have protocols of how you develop, first things versus other things. Mm-hmm. What about things like human resources, or because there's a whole other side of business as well, I'm sure.
Same exact principle. So we have processes that are not very sophisticated. They're simple enough to understand and follow, and the system cross checks, which is also important. Some people get to the point of setting up a process and writing it down in a miraculous great way, but there is no cross check points where, let's say, another person comes in and checks your results independently. And people don't really put those checkpoints in specific critical areas. And I've learned that from aviation. There's specific points where you go down the list, and specific points are meant to be cross-checked by other person. And that's how they ensure security, sometimes twice. And I also have a friend who is a CPA accountant, and they have the similar system for doing audits and stuff. And I've talked to him, and I've kind of digested it all into different processes. And there is a process and training inside of our company how to do a process properly. So we teach how to do that process and how to write it down, how to do the checks, and what to expect at the end.
That's huge. That's something actually in my company. I run an events company, right? And we do staffing, and we are just getting to that stage where we're at the scale now where implementing those systems and having those checklists of what we do first, second, and third, and the information we get from the clients and all that stuff. Before, it was possible for us to do it more piecemeal. But now we're getting to the place where, and I'm realizing more and more, we have to have a system. We have to have a way. So that's really encouraging to hear. So I have a question that for you, and I've seen some information about you about, working with startups, and I know you have experience with a startup yourself, right? Starting a company. What advice would you give for someone who's interested in starting a company, whether it's in the computer space or otherwise? Were there some reflections that you had about getting into your business?
The first and the foremost, find your customers, and find the customers first, and then you can work your way out. It's I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's doable and manageable to hire people and find good talents. It is way harder to find good clients. Find clients and find good clients. Find the clients that value quality. In my case, and I can speak to my case here. So for us, quality is important. Quality costs a little bit more money, although we are working with Argentina, although the price tag is still a little higher than the average international market, just because we have that extra level of security. So for us, it matters to find a company that appreciates that. And some companies don't really need security. They just need a dirty hack altogether and throw it out there and see if it works, or just quality is not their priority. My job, first and foremost, filter out those companies and refer them out, or make sure that they don't go into our final process, as it's not going to be a happy marriage, because we'll be demanding certain steps per our checklists, because that's our proven model, that proven success model that ensures high quality, and they're not ready to follow that, because they would ask, why would you spend 10 hours on setting up development, staging, and production environments where we can only have one server? And the answer is just because it's a proven success model and we have a checklist that's how we do things. It's like you coming into the airplane pilot, and pilot sits on the ground and does his weather briefing, and somebody from the passengers walks in and says, hey, look at the skies, it's clear, let's fly, why aren't you sitting here and checking the weather? But he actually has to check the weather throughout the whole route. My job is to make sure that they trust us, and they don't interfere with the pilots in command that fly the airplane, and they just enjoy the ride, and they're here for safety, and the airplane is safety. In our case, is quality of work. So finding customers. So find the customers and talk to them, make sure that they're happy to work with you, and then work your way down to the operations. I would probably something like that.
So find your customer first, and then kind of build the team around that.
I would probably go this way, and look, it's a broad statement. If you are in the software business, of course, finding a customer means analyzing the need. So what often do I do? What helps me a lot? I would go to App Store or Google Play, and I start reading negative comments on different applications. So I would literally look for negative comments, and that's how I get feedback from comments on YouTube videos or Instagram, or I really read App Store reviews of different apps, and I see what people are complaining about, which, by the way, who doesn't know, is customer service and customer support is number one complaint of all. And apps that have 5 stars have amazing customer support, and that's what people compliment and star apps. And who even a good app, if they don't have a good customer support, they'll have shitty ratings. But so basically, I read and I see the pain, and that is my customer. If I can solve that pain for that customer, I've got a business. And if there's enough customers that have the same pain, then I have a business.
Who is your ideal customer for your company?
Right. The ideal customer for us right now is a company of 250 people plus. We have customers that have over 2,000 employees, but 250 plus, a mid-size company in hardware plus software industry, companies that do hardware and software, and that are looking to scale with quality. That are going into mobile market, because we have great mobile teams, and that are that care about quality and cybersecurity per se, which goes together pretty much, and processes as well.
And when you're looking for, because I assume you're hiring all these developers that are handling these accounts and working on these projects, are there a couple big things you're either looking for or making sure that, or looking to make sure that these people are not one or the other? Maybe good attention to detail, quality, some of those things I've heard you saying, but is there kind of a couple things you're specifically looking for?
When hiring engineers, right? Mm-hmm. It all kind of boils down to a process. So right now we have a process document that describes what we're looking for, and there is a specific process of a set of interviews when we hire people. We look at the resume first, and then we look at a person, and we pride ourselves on hiring very good people. Even if we find a very good talent, but it's not a good person, sometimes ego comes in play, and you can sense that by interviews. And we have at least four different interviews before we make a decision, and it's a collaborative decision, so it's not one person making a decision. Typically there are 4 people who conduct interviews, and then they all get together and they decide whether, like, who they want to work with, pretty much. And we find good talents that are very good people, kind, humble, and by resume, it also, like, we have specific requirements for the resumes and see how long a person worked somewhere, and then we have set of technical interviews, of course, where we see where his strongest suit, because you cannot find a universal soldier, but you can find a person that has enough base skill set and a very good knowledge in a specific area, and he can pick up certain other things as well. That's what we're looking for: good people and good resume.
Got it. So, and you might be looking for like a full stack engineer or something like that. Is that kind of similar?
Yeah, we can get it really depends on the role, on a project, and on a client's requirements. But basically, yeah, let's say full stack. It goes to our HR team. We get, probably they go through 300, 400 different candidates. We pick a few. We run interviews, and we hire 2, 3 usually at a time, depending on the size of a contract, which usually starts with 5 people for team extension, and we hire that over the period of 1.5 months for the start. And then as the company grows or a team grows, we add one by one people. And since you've built that culture, I really had to hire the first 4 and then hand it off to them, because I've picked those 4, and I know they're going to pick similar people and to them. And I've established that process of hiring and have amazing documentation on how to hire, how to do interviews and everything. And they learn how to do that properly, and then they just hire similar people with good skill set.
Did you write those out yourself, or
Yeah.
did you? Okay, that's incredible.
I did it myself.
Amazing. So, and we'll be wrapping up here in just a couple of minutes, but let's say I am, senior year in college. I want to be a software engineer. I want to be a developer, and I'm really excited about a job. I'm interested in any job at all, right? I have student loans or whatever. What would be your recommendation for getting into the career, into a good career? If I'm, again, you're speaking to me and I'm like, Alex, help me out here. I want to get hired for a great company, maybe like yours. How do I go about doing that?
So first of all, it's not about the company. It's all about your manager. So finding a good manager is one of the most important things, because he'll be your mentor, especially if you're just graduating. So I would find a specific set of companies that I would like to work, and I would do interviews, and I would specifically try to talk to the manager that I'll be working with, and I would really nail it down to which person I would connect better. And basically that's what happens, because you connect with a hiring manager, and if he likes you personally, you'll probably make the cut. So it has to be a mutual relationship, and you should find a very good person that is willing to invest in you and make sure you're learning and support you in that, and not a big ego guy that would say, hey, go and figure it out yourself. Finding a good manager is important, and start somewhere. Really start somewhere. When I didn't have I was doing kids hockey here when I came over here. I was a professional referee when I was skating at the top levels in Russia. Came over here, started from nothing. Was skating with 5 to 8 years old kids and reffing their games. And it doesn't matter to me, because I love what I do, and I'm ready to take that grind and pay my dues.
That's so cool. I love that. I don't think a lot of people nowadays are willing to do that. They feel like even if they don't have all the experience you said, they're not willing to go through that process.
Entitlement. That's what it's called. Entitlement.
Yes. Yes, that's very, very true. We get that a lot in our industry. A lot of what we're doing is very basic, serving food and drinks to people. But it's amazing at these events, you'll meet CEOs and you'll meet all these influential people, but the people who come in, sometimes they do have an entitled attitude. It's like, oh, I don't want to just serve food or drinks to people. And it's like, well, you have access to people a lot of times that nobody else has. And if you, again, like you said, apply yourself, have discipline, look for a way to increase your value, doors start opening, amazing doors. So
that's a great example. Just 30 seconds here. In your example, if you're a bartender and you're at those events with CEO, learn the name, call him by the first name, learn his favorite drink, make sure that his glass is always full with his favorite drink, learn his whatever wife, if he came in with wife, and make sure that his wife is happy. And eventually, throughout the event, make sure he doesn't have any problems. And you do that for 5-10 people. You work hard, right? You memorize it all. And you write it down. I'm horrible with names. I write those down. But I write those down so I know how to call people by their first name. And then you will start to see doors opening up for you.
Alex, you're hired. When can you start? Oh, man. Just kidding. Well, hey,
Immediately.
I love it. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time here. What is next? The final question here. What is next for you? I know you mentioned you're in training to get your pilot's license. Is that correct?
Yes, I am in training to get my private pilot license, and in aviation, training never stops. So it just opens up another chapter for another rating and another. So I like that. I'm going to pursue that. I am very interested in cancer research and specifically immune therapy, DNA. Changing DNA with the specific technology. So I'm doing a little bit of research there, and we have a side project on tech project internally in the company to support that. And that's kind of my good deed to the world. We have our internal products that we're launching as well, and I'm super happy to that working. This year we are going on a market with our own product and growing that as well. So I'm super happy, super excited, and most importantly, I'm excited, looking forward to work with people inside Genium because we hire amazing people, and I enjoy every day working with them.
That's so cool. I love hearing that. Okay, well, where can people find you if they're interested in what you're doing or hockey or, where can people connect more with you?
Absolutely. So I'm pretty much all over the place. You can find me everywhere on YouTube, Twitter, whatever is more convenient for you. I'm very active on Instagram and LinkedIn. So the Alex Iceman on Instagram, and I'm pretty active there. You can send questions and just follow what I do. I don't really post a lot of the stuff there related to business, but just to see how I'm progressing with everything. It's out there. And LinkedIn is more professional. Ping me there, connect with me, send an intro message and ask for help. And I would love to help and share my knowledge because I believe we have one life. And if I can ease somebody's pain and help them to enjoy this life better, because it's a really short amount of time on this planet, and we should really enjoy every single minute of it. And I'm happy to do that for all of the guys. Amazing. Okay, well, thank you again so much for your time. This has been a real treat. Like I said, we chatted a little bit, a month or so ago, but getting to know you here has been wonderful. So thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Jonathan. Thanks. It was a blast being on the show. Good stuff. Okay, well, we will connect soon. All right. Thank you. All right. Have a wonderful day. You too. Bye.